Welcome everyone again. So this is Hartin Kanigatotu. From the experience or feedback I received from my previous session, I thought we'll have a pre-assure module just to give an overview about some of the important things that could help you learn Assure better. Okay, so from next class, we will have the official Microsoft syllabus for fundamentals as per the 2 day workshop format. But before that, I thought there are at least a few people who are new to the cloud, and there may be also a few people who are already working with some parts of cloud, but again do not know the core basics. And there will be some people who are completely new to technology as such, because we have students who are completely new to technology from completely different branches, not just IT or computer science or not even engineering branches. So the wonderful thing about cloud is that anybody can learn. It is not just an engineer can learn or a computer science engineer can learn. Anybody can learn. Okay, I'll talk about some examples also towards the end, since this is our first session. But in summary, we'll have different kinds of audiences. I thought before actually going into the Microsoft syllabus, we will take some time to go through some of the things that are important in this cloud industry. And then after that, maybe rest of the day you can read about it, and you can discuss about it with other team members or other students or even your colleagues. So whatever, and even you can ask me doubts about it. But having a decent idea about what cloud is or what happened before cloud is necessary for understanding what we are going to learn in Azure fundamentals. That said, let us get started without much delays. And towards the end of the session, I'll take all of your questions regarding the course and our future classes and even other job role based classes. And this call is recorded, as you all know. Okay, so cloud computing 101, getting started with cloud computing fundamentals. So first of all, we will start with the history of computing, starting with bare metal server virtualization. What are these containers that people talk about? What are the container orchestration tools that people talk about? All those things we will discuss. Road to cloud and then even beyond, and advantages of cloud computing, effect on capex and opex, features of cloud: high availability, scalability, elasticity, fault tolerance, disaster recovery, low latency. And finally, I will take up all your questions, and in between, I might talk about a few other things also. But from tomorrow, we will focus on the syllabus in hand, and some of these things may be taken at a deeper level in that syllabus. Okay, so the reason why I had this pre-session was from my last fundamental session, which I took purely from the Microsoft syllabus. Many people couldn't understand much about uh, what are the core terms in cloud computing. Okay, especially people who are completely new to the cloud. And one thought of the day that you can keep in mind: the person who stops studying merely because he has finished school is forever hopelessly doomed to mediocrity, no matter what may be his calling. The way of success is the way of continuous pursuit of knowledge. This is from a famous book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, which was written, I believe, many years back. And why this quote is important in today's world is because at those times there was a huge depression and all going on in United States of America, and this book helped many people to become successful after that. And even now the whole world is going through some kind of depression because of corona and other things. I thought to share this quote again. Okay, you have to continue learning. You have to continue learning to be successful in life. Okay, and then that learning could happen in many ways. It could be a part of a session like this. It could be self learning in the form of reading books. I read a lot of books, and there could be many other ways in which you can actually learn and grow. The more you know about your teacher, the better you will learn from him. It is not to say that I am a superman or something. I am Hartin Kanigutotu. Okay, I am an author, architect, and tech evangelist. I am a Microsoft certified trainer. I have a few master's degrees, one on cloud and data analytics, have few professional IT certifications, and I've worked with companies including TCS, SAP Ariba, Software AG, VMware, and Society General, and still working. And I have been a speaker at many meetups and conferences. I have taught thousands of students all throughout my career. Okay, so these are some of the books I have published, and I'm still working on a newer one. Latest one is on Azure, which I hope will come out in 2021. Latest book, which was published, got the award of eighth best cloud computing books of all time last year, and I hope to increase that with something different this year with all of your help, because whenever I teach students, work with students, they read my books even before it gets published, and then they give feedback. Okay, please, because we didn't understand this part, because unlike this, in a live video session like this, you will not be able to ask doubts, right? So when they read, they ask me, okay, this part is not clear, okay, and how can I make it, how can you make it better, how can I understand better? So all those questions has helped me, okay, get this award. And then and I have mentioned the students, the core students who were with me from beginning till the end in the book also. I am a Microsoft certified trainer. I have solutions architect expert certification, DevOps expert certification, and developer certification, and fundamental certification, which is the session we are doing today. Quickly, one page about Trainso, because they are coordinating all these things. Okay, Trainso help trainees with live coaching and mentoring from experts. Okay, I'm also a mentor, and real project experience on real projects, not just real like projects. Okay, classes for even communication skills, guaranteed jobs without having any degrees at all, opportunities to earn while you learn, backup plans for working professionals, which is called job loss insurance program. And finally, Trainso has also a lot of initiatives for trainers, in case if anybody wants to become a trainer, they will help. And they also have product development and consulting divisions too. Okay, so where you can actually work until you get another job, or even work there full time. Okay, so now coming back to our course. So most of the courses are having three kinds of modules, which will be uh, so in this class we will be going or in this series, since it is fundamentals, we might be going talks followed by labs and quizzes. And for labs, if you have a credit card, I suggest you create a free tier account. And if you do not have a credit card, do let me know, and then we can work out a plan to give you an Azure account. So there might be limits to which the number of accounts we can give. But again, we will try to accommodate maximum number of people. And you have live and offline quizzes. That is the like a core part of our training programs. Something that people really like a lot. So after all the talks, after all the labs, so we'll have quizzes. So it is not just like any quizzes that you see. So it is a live quiz. At least some of the people who are coming from the Azure Cloud group, which has over or close to 60,000 people, may be knowing it. So as part of the quiz, we will be answering questions live, and that is a second chance for you to ask any of your doubts. When people see the theory sessions, they get a feeling that, okay, I have understood everything. Okay, and when they do labs, okay, they will double sure that, okay, I have understood everything. But when it comes to questions, people think, okay, this is what I thought, but it is wrong. Why it is wrong? So if you are doing an offline quiz, okay, you don't have any option to ask to anybody real. Okay, so that is where the live quizzes come. In the live quizzes, what you can do is you can so if you feel like your answer is wrong, and if my so alongside every question I give some basic explanation, and if you feel like, okay, I need more explanation to it, so I'm not sure why my answer is wrong. If you are in that category, then this is the best place, because you can ask all your doubts and clear all your doubts, so that once you have all these modules done, there will be less need for you to actually learn anything on individual from home. But again, if you want to be future architects, you have to learn a lot individually also. This new program which we designed works on the principles of quizzes, labs, and talks. and hence we have named this program as Culata, and we also created a new portal for Culata where all your live courses will be tracked. Okay, now let us take a pause and let us continue with the actual stuff.
So this will be, the continuation courses will be a different part, like maybe Azure DevOps or other stuff.
Yeah, there will be continuation courses for those who want. I will share those course details towards the end. I think I have put a slide for that also. Okay, so coming to cloud computing, how many of you know what cloud computing is already? Believe me, the more you participate, the better you will learn. Okay, so normally in my batches, there will be few people, like 1 to 2 people, who will be really participating, answering all questions, doubts, and all. So what I have seen is those people have got their career goals much faster than anybody else.
So cloud computing is, what I know is like managing your resources, cloud resources. That means like whatever comes to manage or like provision your application stack or infrastructure.
We will come to cloud. Okay, so before coming to cloud, we will quickly mention few important key terms which people were not aware in my last session. Okay, so that is why I have asked some people from my last session also to attend this so that they will get what they missed. Okay, so history of cloud computing, bare metal. Okay, so a single host machine. Okay, so maybe your computer itself. Okay, without any operating system over it. Okay, so it is just a hardware, right? So that hardware machine you can call as a bare metal. Okay, since this is a 101 session, I'll keep the terms to very basic. But even if you are not able to understand even that very basic, feel free to ask me. Okay, so bare metal, it is a single host machine. Okay, a hardware, and you can compare it with your computer or laptop at home. Okay, so that was the oldest form of the computers that we see today, and there were other things, mainframes or punch cards based systems and all those things. I'm not considering those things. I am only starting. I'm not starting from the history of computers. I'm just starting from the relevant history from which you can understand cloud computing. Okay, so bare metal, it is a single host machine. You have server virtualization coming after it. In server virtualization, this single physical host machine could have multiple virtual machines. So virtual means it is not real, but for people looking at it, they will get a feeling that okay, it is real. So imagine that this one physical host machine has 4 virtual machines, and 4 of you log into it. Okay, all 4 of you, once you log in, you'll not find much difference from a physical machine and a virtual machine. Once you log into the operating system, everything will look almost the same or exactly the same. Okay, the difference is only in the background. Okay, so the difference is only behind the scenes, how whether your operating system is running on a virtual machine or whether your operating system is running on a actual physical host machine. Okay, so your physical machine or host machine will have some of the core capabilities, including compute, your CPU, RAM, etc. And then you have your storage, which will be a hard disk and all. And you have also networking. Okay, so all your network cards and ways through which you can connect to the internet. Okay, so compute, storage, and networking are 3 core things. Okay, are 3 core features that are needed for any computer. Okay, or host machine or whatever, or bare metal or whatever you want, you can call it. Okay, so there are 3 things. One is uh, compute. One is compute wherever your processings and all happening, and one is storage, and one is networking. Okay, if you want to work with uh, any kind of application that is hosted on the internet, including cloud, you need to have these 3 capabilities for your computer. These are the 3 minimum or core capabilities that you need. Okay, so your physical machine has only one set of compute, one set of storage, and one set of networking. So and then I told you that, okay, there can be many virtual machines, and in our use case I told, okay, we have 4 virtual machines in this one physical host machine. So how will you divide okay, how will you divide this one set of compute, one set of storage, and one set of networking among all these virtual machines? Okay, can anybody tell me how it is done? Okay, you can message in the chat unless it is really important, because that will not disrupt uh, the recording. But if you feel like, okay, it is better to speak out, then always feel free to unmute it and speak, because unlike the webinars that I conduct on the Azure Cloud Group, because it has over or close to 60,000 people, here this is a Zoom meeting, which is a personal meeting room with all of you, so that you are free to ask your doubts and questions. Okay, so now coming back, there is a component or software component called hypervisor. Okay, so this hypervisor is the guy who help us share this one set of compute, storage, and networking resources with all these virtual machines. So imagine that we have a storage of 100 GB. So this guy will help us share those resources among these virtual machines. Okay, so then you might think, okay, so it is a very easy thing to do. Okay, you have to just divide that with among 4 people. But the truth is that it is not that simple, because I previously I was working with a company that was specializing on such things, okay, on hypervisors, uh, and is still one of the most popular companies in that space. Okay, so these hypervisors do not just like a divide. So say 100 GB as for 25 GB each. Okay, you will have quotas, you will have minimum, you can configure, because if you consider different components, you will have you can have quotas. Okay, you can have minimum, maximum. So basically it is not especially the compute, networking, and all, it is not divided equally. Okay, there might be weightage for different people, but this guy will share. For example, if you have A, B, C, D, if it is shared, okay, if it is exactly divided, if it is dedicated, the problem is that if A is not using, that resource is getting wasted. So then it will be same as whatever you are doing it in your local machine. So now in your local machine, whenever you are not working on anything, what does your laptop do? Your laptop will not do anything. It will simply sit idle, and your laptop's CPU capacity and all other things are wasted. So what virtualization, which eventually led to cloud, does is, whenever somebody is not using anything, not using a resource such as a compute, it can be used by other people. But there is a limitation for storage, because if you have already stored some data on a hardware, you cannot give it to somebody else for use. But CPU or compute is different. If you are not using the compute resources, another person can use it. Okay, that can be made possible through this guy called hypervisor. Okay.
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah.
In VMware, we distribute these resources, like we allocate a operating system, certain amount of RAM, XYZ to one VMware system, right?
Yeah. So again,
then we are again creating another one. So like we are distributing it, but we are not.
Okay, you are not distributing it. So distribution is when you have multiple systems. It is distributed computing is altogether a different branch. But so here you are sharing it. Okay, basically this server virtualization and even cloud. Okay, cloud, you have a concept of distributed computing also, but this is more of a sharing. Okay, when one person is not using, other person should be able to use. So that is why your cloud providers can give you. I'll explain a bit more about it when we discuss about spot computing or spot instances later. Okay, so in its own session. Okay, anyway, as part of this only. Okay, so now these hypervisors, you said a sharing operating system, right? So to make it clear, so there are two kinds of hypervisors if you want to note it down. Okay, type 1 hypervisors and type 2 hypervisors. Okay, so type 1 hypervisors, you have a bare metal machine, and inside that nothing will be there, and then you will have the hypervisor software installed, and on top of it you will have multiple virtual machines with different operating systems. Okay, that is type 1 hypervisor. You will have a physical you will have a single host machine, and inside that host machine you will be installing a hypervisor software. That hypervisor software will be called as type 1 hypervisor, and over on top of it you will have different virtual machines running different operating systems. That is one model. And another model is uh, you have a host machine. On top of it you install an operating system just like your computer or laptop, and top of it you may have a hypervisor software allowing you to run multiple operating system on top of your operating system. This is called type 2 hypervisor. Okay, so type 2 hypervisor is mostly used for testing or even learning purposes. For example, you have a Windows operating system, and then you want to do you want to work on any other operating system, or you have a Linux operating system and you have to work, you want to work on different operating systems. In those cases you use type 2 hypervisor. But with respect to cloud or anything of that scale, people generally use type 1 hypervisors, and then different companies have different hypervisors. So VMware has a hypervisor, Microsoft has their own hypervisor. Okay, so that is so in summary, that is called virtualization, allowing one physical host machine to be used as different virtual machines. And once you log into those virtual machines, it will just look like a normal machine, normal operating system. Okay, so next is containers. Okay, people thought, okay, now I have a physical machine, now I have multiple virtual machines. So for people can work from the same computer, they may need to have a different interface to connect with, maybe a thin client, or maybe a laptop with less configuration, because all the processing will be happening here, but from their laptop or other system they just need to log into this machine. Okay, so a good display and a decent configuration will work for it. Okay, and so now people said, okay, but again, so these virtual machines are just like normal computers, and they will take the same amount of time that will take for a computer to start, maybe lesser or maybe faster based on the configuration of the underlying physical server. And then came the concept of containers. Containers we will see a little bit more deeper in coming slides. Okay, so they are lightweight systems, again lightweight than virtual machines, which can run on a virtual machine itself, or you can run on a normal operating system also. So basically you can have multiple virtual machines over a single physical host machine called bare metal, and you can have multiple containers on one virtual machine. Okay, so let us see a little bit let us go a little bit deeper into containers. Okay, a container packages all software components into a single deployable unit and is often compared to a shipping container. Okay, so so you may have seen this shipping containers in real life, or at least in movies, right? Okay, they put lot of things inside, and then those things are taken as is to the next destination. Okay, so you compare it with a normal courier transport, where all your data is put alongside other people's data, and then once you reach the destination, you will have to or somebody will have to figure out which resource belongs to what person, and then give it to the right person, and then there will be some extra work. Okay, and what if the item get misplaced? Okay, so sometimes I order items from this courier provider, and it gets misplaced, and then they might cancel it, and then they might order it again. Because during this corona times, I had at least two experiences. I ordered a pen for my laptop, and it was already difficult to get the pen. And again, after waiting for 15, 20 days, and they said, okay, I was getting information. Okay, it has reached there. Finally, they said, okay, the bill reached, but the product was lost somewhere. Okay, so when it comes to software, because when I started my career, or during my initial days of my career, which was long time ago, when the concept of containers was not at all there. So we used to develop applications and then give to QA. Then QA will tell, QA is a quality assurance team or testing team, and they will tell, okay, we installed and tested, but this is not working in our environment. And then when it goes to prod, again, it may or not work there also. Okay, so such situations can be avoided. Okay, so such situations can be avoided by using a container, because you are encapsulating everything in your environment, and that environment is being shipped to another person. So if I am doing it, I will put all of my essential components of my software together with the software into a package called container, and then I will give that container to the other person will test from that container, and finally that container can be sent to prod. So the environment is taken from one place to another. Okay, environment is taken from one place to another, so you cannot say that, okay, it is not working in my environment, because the environment itself is coming. Okay, so one of the most popular products, okay, one of the most popular container products is called Docker. At least some of you might have heard it. Okay, so have you heard about this term called Docker? You can just mention yes or no in the chat, because at least for people from India, it is a morning session. So you may tend to be sleepy, and for people from US, it is a evening or late evening session. Okay. Okay, so if you have not heard about many of these terms, you can read about it. Okay, so today, before our next session, that is the reason why I decided to take an extra session before we go through the syllabus. Okay, so because all these things are very much important for understanding containers. Okay, so do you know the name of the company which created Docker? Okay, there is no live poll, so you can just chat. You can either mention the name of the company in the chat, or you can just mention I don't know. So I don't know, you can just mention N. You don't have to mention the whole yes or no. You can just mention N.
So to deploy the container, we need a virtual machines first, right?
So you can deploy it in your laptop also. It does not need a virtual machine. You need any machine.
No, when we are going for cloud.
Yeah, cloud anyway, you cannot get a physical machine. So you have to go with a virtual machine, or you have, like different services running on cloud, as we will learn in upcoming days. You don't need a virtual machine. Internally, they might use a virtual machine. That is a different story. But there are services on cloud, most cloud providers, through which you can deploy your container. So for Azure, you have a service called Azure Container Instances. Okay, so do you know? Okay, so yeah, I've got a few responses. Okay, so do you know the company who created Docker? Okay, currently that company is called Docker Inc. Okay, that everybody knows. Do you know the company who created Docker? Because you have to participate, because participation is important, because unless you participate, so that is why this is also a screening. So if you want to listen as a participant, just the video, you are free to see the recording, but you have to participate to get most out of it. Okay, so now it was created by a company called Cloud Inc. Okay, within a year they changed the name of the company. So for them, initially this was just like any other product. Docker was just like any other product from the company, but the product became so popular, even more popular than the company, so that they even changed the name of the company to Docker Inc. Okay, that was how a software changed the life or future of a company itself. Okay, so that shows how important this concept was. Okay, so then Docker or containers became popular. So now the next biggest challenge was, okay, people started using containers. Okay, managing one container is fine, managing two containers is fine, but what managing hundreds and thousands of containers? Okay, enterprises have hundreds and thousands of containers, or many containers. You have to manage their scaling, you have to manage a lot of things about these containers. Okay, so then it became difficult to manage it individually or manage it with the services that can focus on only running containers and managing them. Okay, then came the concept of container orchestration. Okay, so you know the meaning of the term orchestration, right? So to coordinate something, to manage something, to make things work together. Okay, and such an orchestration tool was created, and it is an open source tool. It was created by Google and then given away as open source, and many other companies are contributing. Can somebody tell me the name of the most popular container orchestration tool out there?
Kubernetes.
Yeah, so it is Kubernetes. Okay, so that is also an important tool. Okay, Kubernetes is one of the most popular container orchestration tools. Okay, Kubernetes originally started as an internal project at Google and later was made open source. Kubernetes can be used for management, scaling, and deployments of containers efficiently. Kubernetes as a service is available on most public clouds. EKS on AWS, GKE on Google Cloud, AKS on Azure, and Kubernetes is usually referred to as a K8s. You know why?
In the name of Kubernetes, it is 8 letters.
Yeah. So yes. So okay. So if you between K and S, you have 8 letters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. Before K and S, you have 8 letters. So you can say K8s and then read it as a Kubernetes. Okay. So some of these terms, if you are new to it, do take out some time to read about it today. Okay. Who manages the Kubernetes project now? Let's say general knowledge question. Okay, so don't worry. You can Google it out and tell me. So whenever we go to the discussion mode, so those who are not interested in discussion or those who already know the answers can Google it out and tell me. Okay, I'll make a note of it, because as a good software engineer, even googling and finding out the right thing is also very much important. Okay, so you can never know everything in software industry. You can never know everything. So after this course, or after the certification, okay, you cannot go and tell your employer that, okay, I have completed my Azure DevOps certification, so I know everything and I will only work on those things. Okay, you can never say that, because every day in a software engineer's life, you will have to see or work with the newer things, and that is a good thing. And for some of these things, you may not be the first person who is working on that and who has faced this issue. So you may have to search in search engines such as Google and then figure out, okay, what other people have faced and then how they solved it. Okay, you don't have to always reinvent the wheel. You can learn from other people's mistakes also. Okay, you don't have to always wait for learning from your own mistakes. If you wait for learning from your own mistakes, you will not learn enough. Okay, so you have to learn from other people's mistakes also.
So you mean who is managing Kubernetes now? Like,
yeah, so because it was originally created by Google, but now it is an open source project. Who manages that open source project? Okay, somebody has to take care of managing it, coordinating the activities and all, right?
Okay, isn't it Google itself?
No, so it is not Google. Okay, so
something CNSF Foundation, like I don't know exactly many.
Yeah, so you are almost correct.
Cloud Native Foundation.
Yeah, so you can Google it out and tell the exact name. Yeah, so both of you are almost correct. Okay, so as an architect, you need to have a very relevant knowledge of what all things are happening in industry. Okay, and you need to be good when you are communicating with different people. Okay, that creates an impression. It is not just that if you pass the AZ 303 or 304 certification and get a certification badge like I showed in the front, okay, beginning, and say that, okay, I am now an architect, okay, now I can work as an architect, or now I'll get the respect as an architect. That is not true. To get to work as an architect, or to get the respect as an architect, you need to have depth and breadth of knowledge, as I always say to all my batches. Okay, just give a second. Okay, yeah, cloud native computing foundation. Okay, so as an architect, you need to have two things. One is depth of knowledge, because every architect will have a strong area. It may be databases, it may be security, it may be development, full stack development. It could be anything. You need to have a depth of you need to have a depth, as well as you need to have breadth. Breadth means so apart from that, so apart from your strong areas, you need to have a knowledge of all other areas. Even it is the same for even programming languages. You may be a Java programming language, you may be a Java expert, or a .NET expert, or a Python expert. But to be an architect, you need to have a good understanding of other things also. Okay, other languages also. I'll give an example towards the end why it is necessary for an architect. But for now, let us continue. Okay, if I forget, do let me know, and I'll also talk about something called as a golden hammer problem. Okay, so now, and again, let me see when once I finish it off, who will remind me about the golden hammer problem. Okay, or you can at least read the definition yourself, and then let me know. Okay, but towards the end. Okay, so now you have data centers. Okay, on cloud you have data centers, and these data centers are physical locations where you'll have many physical host machines. And in data center, hardware is the primary unit of scale. Okay, and so these data centers were there even before the cloud, right? And then came cloud computing, and cloud computing still uses data centers behind the scenes. Okay, so even before cloud computing came, even when I was uh, studying in my school and college, I used to have a website. Okay, that website and domain name are nowhere available now. But again, I used to have a website, and I used to get like a space from a cloud hosting provider, and then I used to host website. All those things I used to do. Okay, so what is the difference between the traditional data center model versus today's cloud computing model? Can somebody tell me? You can message or chat, or you can even
Like in previous data center, we used to like send a request for the hardware. Then the request will go to the IT team. Then there will be a process, and it was taking too much time to get a hardware. But when the cloud came in the picture, it is like a instant. You don't need to do. It's like anywhere you can get the cloud just on a link.
Yeah. So previously also, it could be it is not limited to just hardware. It could be even virtual machines. Even I remember before all this cloud and all came, even before all this, when we started using virtual machines and all, in our companies, we had to wait for many days to get a virtual machine. Okay, we request for a virtual machine, and then it used to get provisioned after some time. And then even with data centers also, as you said rightly, there used to be a lot of manual efforts. And then if you had only options to buy it for a specific period of time, and if you don't use for that period of time, you will still be charged. The reason is because if everybody wants to create a virtual machine, and then remove that virtual machine with manual effort, the company will go mad. Okay, so what if I need to create one today, delete one tomorrow, create one another day, delete one another day? So your complete man hours, or complete people effort will be going into creating and deleting these virtual machines. So generally, most of these hosting providers during that time used to have some kind of maybe 1 month, maybe 1 year. There used to be different durations. But with cloud, it is on demand. So there are two things. One is it is on demand, and second, automated provisioning of resources. Okay, and it is on demand and automated provisioning. And second one, it is pay per use. Okay, on demand and automated provisioning means, as somebody rightly said, you can create a resource anytime you want. Okay, and then you can it is on demand, it will come up for you, and once you don't need it, you can just remove it. Okay, and then it is pay per use. Okay, you'll be only charged for the time you are using that software. Okay, and there are different levels of abstraction. It starts with infrastructure as a service, where your infrastructure components are abstracted away from you. Your hardware is abstracted away from you. You have to work with the virtual machines, operating systems, and all. Then you have platform as a service, where your whole platform is given to you without worry. You don't have, you can, for example, if you want Azure SQL database, you'll be given an Azure SQL database and you can work on it. But you don't have to worry about installing that Azure SQL database or managing the operating system, patching the operating system, or doing anything on that operating system that manages it. Okay, so you get some benefit, but you also lose that flexibility. But because with the platform as a service, you cannot install anything other than along with this particular platform as a service software, Azure SQL service. What if you needed to install some other software along with the SQL service on the same server? Okay, so then you will have to go with the infrastructure as a service only. Then you have software as a service. So unlike most other things in this list, software as a service is for end users, meaning Google, Gmail, or your Outlook email. Okay, all those things come under software as a service. So the important thing to note here is that for a end user, it is called software as a service. For the developer who implements it, so Gmail, the developer is Google. Okay, for Outlook, the developer is Microsoft. For the developer, it will be one of infrastructure as a service, or platform as a service, or container as a service, or function as a service, or backend as a service. Okay, so there are many different abstractions. So these abstractions important abstractions we will see again in tomorrow's class, because it is part of the Microsoft syllabus also. Okay, and what are the advantages of cloud computing? Okay, advantages of cloud computing includes it replaces upfront capital expenditure with low variable operational expenditure that scales with your business. Okay, capital expenditure is the amount of investment you need to make upfront. Okay, and operational expenditure is a monthly amount you will be paying monthly or even yearly. Okay, so with the capital expenditure, you have to make a big investment. So imagine that you want to start a startup on data analytics, which requires very high compute systems. Okay, and if you were to purchase this from market, these high power systems, okay, you would have to give a lot of money. Okay, I hope that thing gets successful. But what if that startup do not get successful? All this money, all this investment you put, how will you get it back? So if you go to sell your hardware, computer hardware, you may not get this same, forget about same amount. You may not even get a good amount. Okay, so that is in general with most of the computer tools, because the prices of most of these computer items get reduced faster, because newer items with much lesser prices comes into existence as soon as you buy a new item, right? Okay, so that is one place where cloud can help you. So with cloud, you don't have to pay anything upfront, right? You only pay for your monthly usage. Okay, and if you are not successful, you can just stop using those services, and from next day you will not be charged. Okay, that is a very good advantage. And then it provides, even with the within cloud, it provides flexibility between capital and operational expenditure. Okay, because most cloud providers has the concept of reservations, where you can reserve for maybe 1 year or even 3 years to get a wonderful discount. Okay, so you are committing that, okay, I am going to stay, because it is kind of a capital expenditure, because you are investing, and once you make that reservation, you cannot go back from your decision. You have to, irrespective of your business goes good or not, you have to stay, but only for 3 years, not for the entire lifetime, like in the case of non-cloud. Okay, and again, now businesses no longer need to plan for and procure IT infrastructure weeks or months in advance, as somebody had mentioned before, and benefit from the experience and purchasing power of cloud providers such as AWS, Azure, GCP, etc. Okay, so this is also something that people forget about, because imagine that I go and buy a tool, I go and buy a computer, maybe I get it for $500. Okay, and if somebody is going and buying 10 of them or 50 of them or 100 of them or thousands of them, they might get the same for maybe $200 or $300. Okay, so again you are getting so imagine that they are getting it for $300. So and they can give it for 100 they can add 100 more and then give it for $400 to you. Okay, that is still better than getting it for the $500, right? So that is how because AWS, Azure, GCP, and all cloud providers will be buying a lot of hardware, so they'll be buying in bulk, and then they'll be getting that huge discounts, and they can share some of those discounts with us. Okay, on a non-cloud term, so you know that so we are having this Zoom software to conduct these sessions, right? So if you go and try to buy this Zoom software on your own, okay, because this Zoom software has a capacity of maybe 300 people. There is no limit on the meetings. You can have a lot of other benefits, including recording with transcripts, where the text will be generated so that you can even convert it to an audiobook. It has a lot of features. So this is the business or educational plan. So if you want to buy this as a business plan, so you have to have minimum 10. Okay, minimum 10. And if you need to buy as a educational plan, you need to have minimum 20. Okay, when I used to look into it, so the latest should be same. And then the cost per would be mostly around in INR, Indian rupee, it will be 2000 plus. But when somebody buys it, okay, in bulk, okay, so that is the cost per. Okay, but somebody buys cost if you want to get a similar feature directly without all these things. Okay, so and if somebody is buying in bulk, the cost might be much less. Okay, so that is why we also follow the principle of cloud. So whenever we buy a lot of Zoom licenses, and then we give it for free or for a smaller fee to many people, for many of our members, whenever they need it, because we have that purchasing power, and then we have purchased more and then it will be good for them, good for people, because they'll be getting half of what they will have to pay if they go directly, and it will be better for us because we are getting maybe even lesser than half, and it is anyway better to have somebody use it rather than things sit idle, right? So that is the same thing that cloud also does. Okay, when you are not using it, it can be given to somebody else. Okay, so we just not follow the principles of cloud while developing on cloud. We follow it even when we are working on most of the other things. To continue, you do not have to worry about hardware maintenance. You do not have to worry about securing physical servers. You have flexibility to save long-term using reserved VMs. I just mentioned it briefly. You can also close your on-premises and data centers once we migrate everything to public cloud. Okay, one thing to note: reserved VMs as of now, if you go and try to do, when I checked last time, it is not available for the normal pay-as-you-go customers to use it, who use a credit card to get an account. So it was available only for CSP users. Okay, so it is a Microsoft partner who is also a reseller who can give you an account through them. Okay, so Microsoft, unlike most other cloud providers, rely a lot on these resellers or partners. So Trainso is also a Microsoft partner who is authorized to resell Microsoft Azure services. Okay, so only through that, because so some of the features are available only with CSPs. that I will definitely show you in a later demo. Okay, so within the like Microsoft syllabus that we start from tomorrow, we'll discuss more about it. Okay, so there are a few things that Microsoft is different from other cloud providers, and this has especially become important in last 1 year because they have made many new restrictions, because even Microsoft did not think that their business will go from a normal one to a super duper one. Okay, so if you search anywhere for last 1 year, the cloud has a great demand, and Microsoft demand has increased a lot more. With this kind of the demand is kind of combined, or the profits and all for last 1 year is kind of combinedly taking on AWS and GCP. Okay, so even you can see me. So many people ask me why I moved from AWS to Azure, because you have two internationally published books on AWS and then moved to Azure. So because for me, I always believe I take trainings and I write books with respect to what I am working on day to day. Okay, at my work, so in my current line of work, people prefer more of Microsoft Azure compared to AWS. So I thought I'll shift both. I'll shift both my, because I don't want to take my career and my training, because training I do because of my passion for teaching. But if I take my career in one path and then my teachings in another path, so that it will give me a lot of stress. Okay, I don't want that, and because of that I decided, okay, I'll also stick to Azure. Okay, so one quick question: which expenditure model should you use for migrating all virtual machines to an Azure pay-as-you-go subscription? I need answer from all of you in chat.
Scalable.
Okay, can you all chat the answer? Which expenditure model should you use for migrating all virtual machines from your on-premises? On-premises means your own data center, to an Azure pay-as-you-go subscription. Okay, everybody, because if you don't know, you can say N. Okay, because this is very much important, because some of you have come up for this program just to see how the program is and then decide whether to join from tomorrow. Okay, so all these interactions will also let me decide whether you should continue from tomorrow. Okay, so okay, then we had talked about two expenditure models, right? We had only talked about two expenditure models until now. One was capital expenditure and one was operational expenditure. Okay, so elastic and scalable are no more in the picture now. You have only operational expenditure and scalable expenditure. Okay, so now the question is pay as you go. Pay as you go means, is it capital or operational? Now you should be able to answer if you have decent English skills. Otherwise, you should attend our language class also, which is also free for rented people. Okay, yeah, operational. Now everybody have answered it correctly. It is operational. Okay, so there are only two expenditure models. One is capital and one is operational. Others are not expenditure models. They are features of cloud computing. I would not say they are features of cloud computing. They are features of computing in general. You can have all these things in local machine also, but at a extra cost. Okay, high availability, ensuring an agreed level of operational performance, usually uptime. Scalability. Okay, high availability means your systems are operational and you have a uptime as per SLA. Okay, scalability, it is a capability to adapt and perform well under an increased and expanding workload or scope. It may be also referred to as dynamic scalability. Elasticity, it is allocation of required resources to meet current needs. Scalability is generally achieved through elasticity. Okay, so you have the concept of scalability can be achieved through the feature of elasticity that is provided by most cloud providers. Okay, and then you have so scalability and elasticity may be used interchangeably, and the definitions may be confusing. Maybe some people will tell, okay, elasticity makes scalability possible or scalability makes elasticity possible. So it does not matter. Both are interchangeable. You can consider it in as scalability in general. Okay. And fault tolerance. Okay. Fault tolerance means ensuring that servers or services remain available even if something fail. Okay. Disaster recovery means something fails and then immediately or after an SLA period of time, something else come up and that failure is overcome. Okay. So generally within a region, we will discuss about regions later and then I will explain those things. So now just understand, okay, if something continues to run even after a part of it dies, it is called fault tolerance. And if something goes down and immediately comes back, then it is or immediately or further the SLA comes back, it is called disaster recovery. Generally people get confused between disaster recovery and fault tolerance. And finally, low latency means the ability to access services faster. Okay. High latency means you can access something slower through internet. Low latency means you can access something faster through internet. And for those, you can use software such as CDNs, content delivery networks. We will also discuss about content delivery networks later. So all these terms I'm telling because you can, if you are not aware, you can ask doubts or you can even read about it today. Okay, capital expenditure is the initial investments such as buying fixed assets, and operational expenditure is ongoing costs including annual costs. With on-premise, these features means more hardware that will be used only when needed. Okay, but with cloud, these resources are provisioned on demand. Okay, so that is something which is very much important. Okay, don't think that all those, since I just put this heading by mistake, okay, features of cloud computing, don't think that all those things are only available for cloud. Okay, so these are also available for premise also. Okay, so these are in on premise. Okay, let us take about scalability, for example. If you want to have so you might have bought things from Flipkart, Amazon, Walmart and all, right? So there might be some sales for products. Okay, imagine that I have XXX sale today, and during the sale, so in normal situations, if I need these are all hypothetical. So if in the normal situations, imagine that I need only 2 VMs to handle a application, but in during the sales, okay, so during this sales time, I need 10 machines. Okay, during normal time I need only 2 machines, but during the sale I need 10 machines or even 20 machines. Okay, to handle the load. Okay, if you are in on premises, so will you be able to do it or not? Yes or no? Why your n will be more than enough? Okay, quickly, yes or no, or you can put D for do not know. Why n D? Okay, so most of the people said n, but the fact is that answer is yes. Answer is perfectly yes. Okay, the only thing is you have to buy those 10-20 hardware a day before. Okay, so 10-20 extra machines a day before the sale, it will perfectly work. But what is the problem? After that sale, what will you do with those computers? So once you buy, it is effectively like paying for the computer every day, every month, every minute, right? So, but with cloud, you can get those machines only for that 1 hour. Okay.
But what if there is a scenario like a research project for PhD individual and he wants to prove his thesis or proposal, whatever, defend his proposal. So in that case, in long run, for a tenure of 1 to 2 years, maybe cloud is feasible or not?
Yeah, cloud is always feasible because as long as he is a human being, he will not be working on this project 24/7. Okay, so there might be times he is sleeping, and during those times you can stop these compute resources, and then you will not be paid for those times. Okay, and I will talk about something called as spot instances, which many research people use. Okay, but because normal computers cost a lot. Okay, so there are big data processing computers and all cost a lot, but these things you can get it for even, so maybe your cloud provider is giving it for $100, from the same cloud provider using the spot concept, you can get it for maybe a few dollars, maybe $5 instead of $100. Okay.
SPOT spot.
Yeah. So they are called spot instances. Basically, the same concept that I told about the Zoom licenses. Whenever you are not using a license, your cloud provider will give it to you for free. Okay. So not free, for a very low price where nobody is using. Okay. So there is a hardware sitting where nobody is using. Then you can bid for it or auction for it and get it for an hour to do your processing. Even the most powerful systems, you can get it for lesser cost than your normal virtual machines that you get from cloud. Okay, I'll talk about spot instances later. So anyway, people who do not want to do not like suspense or do not want to wait can read about spot instances. The concept is there in almost all cloud provider. Okay, so that is one thing. So with scalability, you can do it in local, but extra cost. Okay, you have to buy those hardware and then you don't have anything to do with it. Okay, and then another important thing is disaster recovery. In local, what is disaster recovery? If your primary machine fails, your secondary machine should work. In local, to have a disaster recovery setup, you need to have 2 machines minimum, right? And so effectively, you will be paying for 2 machines, even though the second machine is not being used. But with cloud, your primary goes down, your secondary will work. But at one point of time, either primary or secondary, only one of them is working, right? So that means you have to pay only for one machine always. Okay, so those are some of the advantages of moving to cloud, but all these features can be done in your on-premises also or your local also if money is no problem for you. Okay, so in cloud, it works on the principle of sharing so that when somebody is not using, somebody else will be using it. Okay, it is just like renting a hotel room or renting a house. Okay, you don't have to pay the money for the house. You have to just pay the money whenever you are staying in it. When you are vacating, you don't have to pay anything more. Okay, and few more important. Okay, these important points for you. So, okay, high availability, performance, and uptime. High availability, performance and uptime in response to increasing demand is considered. With fault tolerance, only uptime in response to a failure is considered. Okay, in fault tolerance, service continues after a failure. In disaster recovery, services may be interrupted, but they recover faster. Okay, scale up means, okay, so how many of you know the difference between horizontal scaling and vertical scaling? Another very important term. Yes, no, anything is fine. Okay, so horizontal scaling means, can somebody answer quickly who said yes? What is horizontal scaling?
RAM. Getting the services like RAMs and CPUs.
No.
Increasing the your resource capability maybe.
No. So that is, so increasing the resource capability of one machine is called as vertical scaling. Okay, so vertical scaling means increasing the capability of one machine. Okay, you are making the same machine bigger. Okay, horizontal scaling. Okay, yeah, so it is English, right? In English, vertical means going up and horizontal means going sideways.
Right. The horizontal is I to this level. I mean, I'm to say increasing your or replicas. I mean, if you want another machine or like another resource, so adding up, scaling up as per the requirement.
Yes, perfectly. Okay, so it is horizontal means you are in same level. Okay, horizontal means you are in same level. That means if you have one machine of one configuration, you'll be adding more machines of same configuration and you will be serving that request. Okay, that is called horizontal scaling. And vertical scaling means it is going up. Okay, you have one machine, that same machine, you will increase the CPU, maybe increase the RAM, you'll increase something else, you'll be going up. Okay, always imagine, because most of the terms in cloud computing and programming are related to plain English terms. Okay, you imagine this and then many people get confused between horizontal scaling and vertical scaling. Okay, so vertical scaling, you are, imagine it is vertical, meaning you are going to heights. You have one machine, you are increasing its capabilities. Okay, horizontal scaling means you have one machine, you are replicating its capabilities with another machines of same capacity. So that is why it is called as horizontal scaling. Clear? Okay, so okay, from a vertical scaling will work for all kinds of applications. But with dynamic horizontal scaling will work only if the application is stateless. What do you mean by stateless? So meaning if you have, so imagine when I started my request, I have only one virtual machine. Okay, so now I need to scale to two virtual machines. So what if my request can only go to virtual machine 1? Okay, so if it is a sticky, meaning if the request has to always go to the previous machine in which it went, then even if 2 or 3 machines come up, my request will only go to first virtual machine, right? So that means my virtual machine has some connection to the my request has some connection to those virtual machine. It is sticky and it has a state on that virtual machine. Stateless means first request can go to virtual machine 1, second request can go to virtual machine 2. It does not care which virtual machine it goes. I still have my functionalities working. Okay, so if your application is a stateless, then horizontal scaling can really help a lot because you can add more machines, remove machines, all dynamically. But adding more RAM or removing more RAM, you cannot do it when a request comes. It cannot be done dynamic in most cases. You have to either replace it with a higher powerful machine, or you have to stop the computer, take out the RAM. You have to do many different things. Okay, it cannot be done dynamically. So for dynamic scaling, generally people use the horizontal scaling, and for that to have happen effectively, your application should be designed in a stateless way. That also we will see later, don't worry. Okay, so at least you have got the idea about what stateless development is, right? Okay, and then important terms, scale up means replacing servers with more capacity ones, which is also called as vertical scaling or increasing its capacity. Scale out means adding more servers and processing in parallel, which is also called as horizontal scaling. Okay, scale up is vertical, scale out is horizontal. Clear? Okay, and one quick question before we end, or go to the next part. Okay, are cloud native applications specific to cloud providers? Yes or no? Okay, so cloud native applications are not. Okay, so a cloud native application is an application that has been designed and implemented to run on cloud and embrace horizontal elastic scaling. The word native in cloud native may make us think that only the applications developed natively within a cloud can be considered as cloud native. That is not true. The cloud native phrase is used commonly throughout most IT circles today. Okay, you will hear it everywhere. The other phrases like cloud friendly, cloud ready, cloud optimized, if you try to use now, they are neither as catchy nor as widely recognized as the term cloud native. So this is one reason we use still cloud native, even though it gives false impression to at least some people that okay, it is a cloud native, it is something native to the cloud. Okay, it is basically something that is designed and implemented to run on cloud. Okay, and then to understand about how to make it run on cloud, you can read about two things. One is a 12-factor app. Okay, I'll put it in the chat also. It is 12-factor app, not needed for fundamentals, but still it is good to read. And also read a book which is available freely, I believe, Beyond 12 Factors. Okay, so in VMware website, it is available for, I believe, the second one, Beyond 12 Factors, where they discuss about 15 factors, which is more relevant for today. Okay, so maybe in the WhatsApp group, I will try to share the links after this session. Okay, and then some of the popular cloud providers include AWS, Azure, GCP, IBM Cloud, Oracle Cloud, and Alibaba Cloud. Okay, at one point of time, there was only AWS, then Azure and GCP came, but now Azure has been growing much faster than anybody else, and because of its new CEO, so who has put a lot of newer, interesting business proposals and offers, including if you have on-premises Azure cloud, in on-premises Microsoft Windows software, you don't have to pay the full fee for similar software on cloud. We can use something called as a hybrid benefit. Okay, so that others cannot give. So, and then also another reason, another thing is you have different ways to pay your bills that many corporates prefer, not just through credit card. And if you are corporate, you can negotiate your discounts. So, and even so, if you are using Windows software, you have an option where which you do not have to pay the licensing cost for if you are testing. For example, if you consider a $300 Windows machine, almost half of it is your Windows licensing cost. So if you are using it for testing, you don't have to pay to Azure. But with any other cloud provider, you'll have to pay because eventually they will have to pay Microsoft the licensing fee, right? So licensing fee can be waived only by Azure because it is the same company. Okay, there are if you are into a Windows environment, there is no doubt you can go with Azure. And then for Linux, almost all cloud providers have a similar support. Okay, so those are a few reasons why Azure is having a lot of usage, especially among top corporate companies or Fortune 500 companies. Okay, so that's it. We can take a pause. If we will take 1 minute or 2 minute pause. If you want to quickly go to restrooms and or take a coffee or do something and come back, you can come back. And then I will be answering all your questions about this program, and I'll be sharing some information first, and then we'll be taking questions. But if somebody has already enrolled for this program, okay, so and or enrolled for a higher program and is attending it, so rest of this rest of the class for today is optional for them. They don't have to worry about it. Okay, from tomorrow we will start our classes based on the Microsoft syllabus. But to understand that syllabus better, whatever we discussed until now is really needed. Okay, so I usually had a combined PPT for me, and so recently I started taking Microsoft syllabus, but I felt like my PPT had more information, especially on the fundamentals part. So that is why, so this batch from today, I've decided, okay, I'll have one session before the Microsoft syllabus to explain about these important things, for especially for people who are new to the computing background. Okay, so you may have heard many new terms today. You note it down and learn. Even if you are not planning to continue for the course from tomorrow, still I would suggest you learn all these terms, because if you want to be working on any cloud anytime, you will need to understand all these things without fail. Okay, so whoever is done with today's session, they can take a break, or has registered already or part of another course. You can end the meeting now, or if you want to hear about the program and all those things, you can wait. Okay, I'll also take a 2-minute break and then we will continue. Okay, welcome back everyone. So on a quick note, okay, so to people who who are from other backgrounds, okay, so my wife even was from a non-computer science background, and after engineering, after marriage, okay, so she was into support, and then she was finding it really challenging to actually manage both work and home, because as a support engineer she had to work in other shifts. Okay, that is actually one time when I started writing. Okay, so whenever I was at home, I used to write, and whenever she was at home, she used to read from it and learn. Okay, these video trainings or even recordings did not come to my mind during that time. It was many years back. Okay, but then she learned even from those notes, and then got a good technical or development role, and she switched her career, and she's a lead engineer in a very good MNC today. Okay, so if you are interested in learning, there is nothing stopping you from doing it. Okay, that was just notes. And then she always had me to ask doubts anytime she wanted. Okay, and then later, almost all those notes with that I prepared became a website called javaje.com. At that time, it was not cloud; it was Java, and that website had huge following many years back. So with over 6,000 students from 45 countries. Okay, so now later I moved to cloud. It is kind of like sitting there calling me, okay, please look back at me and do something. So that is why I'm planning to restart my Java courses also, as some of you have already joined for the same. Okay, so if you are interested, okay, so there are people who thinks, okay, I cannot learn, okay, because she is from an electronics background and she didn't have any idea of programming. Okay, and if you are interested in learning, I can try my best to teach you. You don't have to worry. But if you have taken the decision, I don't want programming, then definitely you can try something else. But if you can try, I would suggest, because if you look in the market, there are a lot of opportunities, and we have chosen for our developer course, .NET is there for exam preparation part. But otherwise, we selected for the full stack, we selected Java and React based on our market research and job opportunities. Okay, so that said, I just thought I'll give a motivating thing to start with, especially for people who are not coming from a computer science background. As long as you have a good computer or decent computer and a good internet is non-negotiable. Okay, so that is why even for our interns, we try to pay internet expenses for all of them. So we may not be able to pay all of them their internship fee. So that is why I am conducting these trainings. Okay, so whatever fees you pay, at least people who can afford pay, will be given to them. And so if you are willing, you can even directly give to them. And then because I will share the details, and then you can directly give to them, so that I can stay, or this Trainso can stay less from all those processes. Because whenever you pay through us, even though it is for paying the interns, we still have to pay the taxes and all as per government regulations. Because another reason why Trainso was created was because if a individual trainer is giving training, he cannot give you a valid internship certificate or a work experience certificate. Again, we will not give internship certificate or work experience certificate just like that. Only if you have done it, and we will specifically mention the duration and even hours if you are part-time. So we want to be more credible. So that is why our internship certificates are considered valid. And then you can, just like your Microsoft certifications, it is not like, because you can see many companies that simply give certificates, right? And so you cannot validate it anywhere, whether it is valid or not. But our okay, I think somebody has unmuted. Okay, so our certificates, you can validate, your employer or anybody can validate live over the browser. Okay, so that is a good thing, right? So they cannot say that, okay, somebody has forged it and come, because you can validate over the browser, just like your Microsoft certifications. Anybody can validate by going through that URL. Okay, so, and then coming back to the important question, why should I go and invest into a career in cloud computing? Demand for cloud computing jobs is always more than supply. There is almost always a career path in cloud. People with programming skills may choose a developer path. People with DevOps skills may choose a DevOps path. And there are also specializations for networking, security, machine learning, natural language processing, data analytics, database, and big data. People with no experience on cloud can get started fast. And you can also, if you do not have a job, you have options to train others until you find a job. So I am doing it for free. That does not mean you have to do it for free. If you want to come and train for us, you can do it for a fee. And then by training us, we will also recommend you for your MCTs and other things, so that you can get a lot of benefits from Microsoft. Because as a Microsoft certified trainer, you give me a lot of benefits, including an Azure account with $150 per month, or they will prepare the materials and share. and even I can connect with the many good people within the training industry who are MCTs, and many licenses including Visual Studio subscription and many things they provide for their certified trainers. And if you work for us, then as later we can also certify that you have worked for us as a trainer, so you are eligible for MCT. Okay, and you can start your own startups with little or no investment with the cloud. Okay, so if you do not have a job right now, the best thing to do is start a startup. Okay, with start working on a startup, have an idea, so have brainstorming. If you want a team to discuss or brainstorm, you can let me know, I can provide one, and then start working on it. And so there are two advantages. So first of all, you are building an app on Azure cloud, so you are learning things end to end. Second, you can always, if your idea is good, you can so who knows, it might become, you might be next CEO of a big startup or a big company. And worst case, if it is if it do not kick off also, whenever you go for a next interview, you can tell that I was working on a startup on my own, I wanted to start this, nothing worked out, but I have I have those learnings with me, and I want to start or restart working on a normal job. Okay, so there are many ways to fill in that gap. Okay, so rather than sitting and feeling bad for yourself that I have lost everything, I have lost my job, and wasting the time, spend on something useful. If you don't know that useful you don't know about any useful things to spend your time with once you lose your job, you can always contact me. And I definitely know that for some people it is not about learning and showing some experience in their certificate. It is also about having some income to continue on. So that is where we have programs such as these, where we try to help interns with payments also. And that payments, so we have dedicated, me and wife has dedicated a percentage of our salaries for this purpose every month. And by God's grace, after we doing that, we have got many things better in our life. And so similarly, so good hearted people will come and help us. And so those who help these people, I will teach them for free effectively, so we'll be paying the fees directly to them. Okay, and without the tax component, of course, because all those people are below. Okay, so since they are helping them, so all those people do not have a job and they're below the tax brackets, and so you can, so you'll be paying lesser than you'll be paying, and you'll be even having the satisfaction of helping somebody in need. Okay, and how can I get real world experience in cloud computing? Another question I get. You can show any work you do on cloud as real world experience. Cloud is real world. The apps you build as a pet project or as part of your course, or use the same infrastructure as any big enterprise company can use. Choose a public cloud, learn more about it, preferably as a group, work on pet projects to reinforce your learning, attend meetups and conferences. These are some ways you can get to know what is happening on the cloud industry, and we do all those things together here at Cloudrix and Trainso, who is supporting this initiative. Okay, so Cloudrix is a community of people who learn together for, and there is no fee or anything. Okay, so and Trainso is currently supporting this initiative. Okay, and so many people had questions about the course and fee. So as I mentioned, all the course fee will be going to job seekers. And if you do not have a job, you can decide your fee, because if you are from India, you can have, there is no minimum limit at all. So it is only limited by how much you can make a transfer through banking. Even ₹1 is fine. Okay, so how much you can afford. So nobody can. So that is why, for if you do not have a job, we won't ask you, we won't tell you a fee, because we will tell you, okay, the normal fee, okay, this is the normal fee, but you can decide your fee starting from ₹1. What you can afford, only you can say. Okay, so you decide your fee, what you can afford, and so rest you can compensate, or rest you can even ignore. But and if you cannot afford even that 1 penny, because the other one we do for verification purposes mostly, because even when you create an Azure account, you have a minimum amount that will be charged for verification, because we want to make sure people are genuine, even though we will check other documents, including other things. But again, so even if you have spent 1 rupee, I have seen that people tend to be more serious in learning than if something is completely free. But if you cannot afford that rupees one, you can say, and then you can even get it completely free. Okay, our objective is to help people, but then you'll have to seriously learn. That is the only thing. And if you have a job and afford a fee, you may pay the fee, and this fee could be paid to us directly, or even to an intern. Okay, that is up to you how you want to do that. Okay, so that is about the fee details and all. So because I am taking the mentoring thing, so fee discounts or anything that is on the payment side, you can ask in the WhatsApp group, and then people will help you out with links. You can check and you can decide all those things. Okay, I talk about the processes, and I talk about the the logic or reasoning behind everything. Okay, but I'm consider me as a mentor and a technical expert, but anything related to course access or other things, you can always check with the team, Trainso team, and they will help you out. Okay, and some of the job role based courses that I am mentoring, or trainers are mentoring close to me, so taught by people working in similar roles who are also Microsoft certified trainers. One-to-one mentoring sessions. The finishing school program consists of everything to be successful, including language and communication classes. So there is a different program altogether called a finishing school, which is on top of your normal job-oriented courses, which also has additional things like language and communication classes and all those things. Because some people, technology is not just enough. Okay, for some people, they may be good in technology, but to crack interviews and to grow up in their career, they might need the language skills, communication skills, public speaking skills. Even if some people, even if they have language skills, they are afraid to speak to a public. Okay, they go to a stage and they panic. They go to interview and they panic. Okay, all those things will be taken care. So it is a concept that was there in many countries. If somebody has seen this movie called Elona Holmes, I believe, the Sherlock sister movie in Netflix, okay, they might have seen the concept of finishing school, where people used to make people ready for a community or a social community, but here it is making ready for job. Okay, and Azure fundamentals part is part of all the tracks, and so those directly join this program, all the fees is used to help people. And if you are part of other job oriented tracks such as DevOps, so we have 3 as of now. One is Azure DevOps with administrator or developer, because as per Microsoft, your DevOps certification, 400 certification, has to be along with either 104 for administrator or 204 for developer. So everything comes as part of it. And then you have full stack engineer, Java plus React on Azure. And then you have Azure Cloud Architect, which is kind of everything. Okay, all in all bundle, because as an architect, Microsoft recommends, okay, you need to have development experience, DevOps experience, and even administrative experience. Okay, so one place you can read all these things is whenever you go to a certification, do not just read the skill sets needed to pass the exam. Read that first paragraph that Microsoft provides. There it will tell what is expected from a candidate. Okay, there it will say, okay, as a DevOps engineer, you need to have either administration or developer skills, but as a cloud architect, you need to have experience with development also. Okay, so if you are somebody with no interest in programming, then you can choose the first one, Azure DevOps with administrator or only administrator. And if you want to have want to be a developer with good job opportunities, then a lead developer, then you can go with Azure DevOps with developer. Or if you want to have a work as a full stack engineer on Azure, again, even the developer course is part of full stack engineer also, you can go with the full stack engineer part. And Azure Cloud Architect, it is combination of all these things together. So you are assumed to know a programming language, or you can join one of the other one and later get upgraded to Azure Cloud. So these are the other things happening. Okay, so you don't have to learn from me. You can even learn on your own. Okay, and I assume after learning, at least some of you will decide to help more people in the future. And you can definitely connect with us. Okay, remember this azco.cldrks.2. You can see all the communities. Okay, so you can see all the communities that we manage and join one of it as per your interest. And az.bt.help. Okay, it is for live sessions, but it's not applicable now. yt.cloudedis.com is our YouTube channel. Again, it is not applicable for this case. Okay, first one you can probably try out. Okay, I'm in IT I'll take a question from Chirag. Okay, I'm in IT support, not sure which one I should go for, Azure certificate or developer. Okay, every course that we do is backed up by Azure certifications. Okay, so certifications should not be a criteria. Even full stack developer on Azure has Azure developer certification part of it. But the important question you need to ask is, are you ready to do you know programming or not is first question. Okay, if you know programming, I would suggest go for a developer track with DevOps or full stack engineer. And second question, if you do not know programming, the question will be, are you interested in learning programming or not? Okay, if you are not interested, you should not learn. But if you feel like, okay, I'm interested, or at least I want to give a try, then you should definitely give it a try. Okay, if you are interested, I can help. But if you are not interested, you can go with DevOps. Again, another question, I'm in IT support too, but with more on data center operation side and system administration. Okay, so you can probably go with DevOps with administrator, because administrator alone can get you, it can still get you Azure support roles. Okay, support roles on Azure, L1, L2, L3, etc. But if you want to move into little bit more than support, you need to go with DevOps with administrator. The reason is because administrator means you know how to configure things on an Azure portal. You need to troubleshoot things. You have good knowledge about how things work on Azure. But DevOps means all those things you implement it in a project, or you automate those things, because in real world nobody will actually manually configure most of these things. You automate most of the things. You provision it once and then reprovision it from those scripts. Okay, so those automatic provisioning mostly comes from the DevOps side, and without automatic provisioning you cannot do anything. Okay, in today's world. Okay, what about data scientist aspirants? Okay, again, so data scientist aspirants, I would suggest you start with again, for data scientists, at least in Microsoft world, they clearly say you should have good, if you go to that certification topics, it will clearly tell you should have good development skills. Okay, either C# or Python. And then if you learn one programming language, you can learn others much easier. Okay, so you can definitely start with a developer, because DevOps is a developer or administrator is kind of a prerequisite for DevOps. Okay, there was a question on DevOps. So as per Microsoft, administration or developer is a prerequisite for DevOps. So to get the DevOps certification itself, you need to have either developer or administrator. So if you want to go into a data scientist role or a AI or ML role, definitely I would suggest go with a developer, and or have a decent understanding of the programming languages, and then go with AI or ML and all those things. Another reason why a programming language is good, it is not just for working. You will be able to work on problems. Okay, you will think more, you will work on data structures, algorithms, problems. You can improve your brain capacity by working on those problems. Okay, and some of those problems, some of those knowledges will also help when you go to your advanced data science models and all, because some of the concepts such as trees, binary trees, or binary search trees, many of those concepts will come handy later. All those things are part of the full stack engineer track, because it is not just an Azure certification track. You have data structures and algorithms. You have engineering concepts that you missed learning in college, or you did not even learn in college because you was in a different track. Okay, so that full stack engineer consists of Java, React, and even data structures and algorithms. The data structures and algorithms part you can implement it on any language. Okay, any language of your choice. Hope I made it clear. Anybody else? Any questions, doubts, anything? Yeah, thank you. Okay, anybody else? Any questions, doubts, anything? Okay, I am in IT support, worked as a tech support and some application support. I don't have any strong cloud experience. I'm interested in a supporting role also. So is administrator role suitable for me? No programming language experience. Yeah, administrator is suitable for you. And so definitely you can continue it with DevOps. Okay, what is the path for DevOps administration? Okay, DevOps is not DevOps administration. So you at least in Microsoft terms, DevOps consists of a lot of things. It consists of project management with Azure boards. It consists of building pipelines with Azure pipelines, even GitHub Actions. There are many things where you do not need programming, but as a DevOps engineer, you will not be coding, but there are also DevOps engineers who code and develop. There are also DevOps engineers who do not code, but they deploy applications, build pipelines, and all. So even if you are not a developer, you can go with DevOps. And even if you are not a developer, you don't know any language. At least as a DevOps engineer, you need to have basic understanding about how to build various programming languages or the common ones. Java, C#, Python is what I would recommend. At least you should know how to build a Hello World application and deploy it on Azure Cloud. That is expected of a DevOps engineer or even an administrator. Okay. Another question is what about Azure Cloud Architect? Okay. So as I mentioned before, okay, Azure Cloud Architect. Okay, I will quickly share the Microsoft page for it. Okay, 1 second. Okay, I'll share. So if you search for Azure Architect certification, you go there. Okay, so this so many people scroll down and go to skills measured and learn it and pass. So read this part. Okay, candidates for Azure Solutions Architect X certification should have subject matter expertise in designing and implementing solutions that run on Azure, including aspects like compute, networking, storage, and security. Should have intermediate skills for administrating Azure. Should understand Azure development and DevOps processes. Okay, so they should have like experience or knowledge on all these areas, so then only they can become an architect. So basically, as part of the program, you can attend most of the other things and then choose where you want to focus more. Because as an architect, I told initially, nobody reminded me, I told about one thing called as golden hammer problem. Okay, the problem with many architects who do not have a good breadth of knowledge. So every architect should have a depth of knowledge in something important to them, like data or security or networking or full stack engineering or whatever it is. But they should also have a breadth of knowledge in all other areas. Okay, that is another reason why this fundamentals exam is very much important, because fundamentals exam is at 900. Many people say that, okay, do not take it because it is not a prerequisite for your DevOps or other things. But if you are going to be a future architect, fundamentals exam or its topics is very much important. You are not going in deep into any of those topics. You are not trying to create a depth here. You are trying to increase your breadth here. Okay, so does Azure DevOps or architect covers containerization concepts? Yes. So because most of the you have to understand how you deploy the containers in a cloud. Okay, so the DevOps especially the administration part covers it briefly, but when it comes to DevOps, especially the architect part, you will go deeper into containerization concepts also, because as a architect, you need to understand everything, right? You cannot stick to only one area. Okay, so any more questions, doubts, anything?
I have one question here.
Yeah.
I'm working in IT support from last 3 years, but I do have interest to learn programming. So I'm not sure which should I do it first, to do a programming first, make the concept clear for the programming and then go for the Azure certification, or it's like two of things I have to do it at the same time.
Okay, so so that is this full stack, whatever I was mentioning, is actually designed for it. So you will go hand in hand together. because at the same time you will not have two classes. So you will have a language class to understand the essentials. Along with that, you will have a cloud. So it will be a mix and match and going, but without overburdening anybody. And then they can decide where to focus more. Okay, so that is why, because earlier we had two separate batches, one for Java and one for Azure developer, and some people were finding it difficult to manage both. So that is why we created a new one, which is designed for those people who want to learn both. Okay, so both of them will go in and go hand in hand with each other. And those people who do not want to have this learning programming language alongside can go with standard development with DevOps and all, pure Azure certification. So that is why we have, because normally we never had a course such as these, which is outside of Azure certifications, because the full stack one is actually working with Azure and programming at the same time. Again, all these specializations comes after fundamentals, of course. I hope I cleared. Okay, so and there is another question. Azure Kubernetes covered in DevOps. Okay, so yeah, essentials of Kubernetes are covered in DevOps. Okay, but we'll not go very deep into Kubernetes. Docker will go a little bit deeper, but we'll not go very deep into Kubernetes because again, so it is a course on its own. Okay, a bigger course on its own. But again, if you are interested, you can I can, or maybe the other developers can, other trainers can help you go deeper into Kubernetes also. Okay, so we follow a practice of coaching and mentoring. Okay, so we reshare. Okay, so we follow a practice of coaching and mentoring, as you can see. So the coaching part will take care of all things that are part of the syllabus, and then there will be mentoring sessions, and there will be guiding sessions. Okay, we will guide you. Okay, so we will, even though we say we teach essentials, okay, other things even that are not part of certification syllabus, we will guide you. Okay, from where to learn, we may provide materials to you, we may guide you, we may put you on projects related to that. Okay, it is not it will not be a course from a syllabus, because Microsoft does not provide syllabus for it. But again, we will, because some of the things, such as for DevOps engineers, you may need to know a little bit of Terraform, Ansible, or as you mentioned, Kubernetes. All those things are relevant. All those things we will take care as part of it, as part of the mentoring sessions, because these mentoring sessions are mostly one-to-one mentoring sessions. And during the one-to-one mentoring sessions, we generally during the one-to-one mentoring sessions, so we have individual targets or individual goals for each people, and using those individual goals, they can work towards their goal, and in the next one-to-one session we will check the progress for that.
Yeah, thanks for that, Harden. So like
Okay.
you said, like you'll be covering like Ansible and like maybe Terraform, all this kind of tools. Will it be covered?
Yeah, so essentials of that will be covered. So that will be done by experts from their own fields.
Okay.
So I'll be mostly taking the Azure part of things. Okay, and so there will be, so that is why it is not just a one-man show now. Okay, so I am, consider me only as a resource person or an expert who is taking training. And even though, to be frank, so taking this training is kind of giving back to society and giving back to parents, because Trainso is the directors are my parents. So even if I am working for free, I'm effectively giving them something back, and I also believe that I am giving the society something back. Okay, as long as I am working, I'll try to follow this model, and later maybe someday, because the idea was mine, but since I believed that okay, I needed to be in the industry for some more time to get enough exposure so that I can help people, because if I am a pure trainer, I can never guide you on how things work in the industry, right? So I need to be in that place, and I cannot take up two jobs at the same time. So my parents are taking care. Maybe at a later point of time, I will come as the very important person maybe in this company in future. Okay, but as of now, this is the model.
Yeah, thank you.
Any questions? Any doubts? Okay, I hope all of you are part of the WhatsApp group, and then you can continue to ask questions. At least some of you are part of other groups also. Okay, some of you may have seen my other trainings in the group earlier, or some of you might be seeing it for the first time. Okay, so just one quick question, just for how many of you have at least seen one of my previous sessions? If you have seen anything previously, you can say P, or if you are knowing about me from first time, you can say K. Okay, new. Okay, yeah, so few P's and more K's. Okay, that is good. Okay, so I hope all of you are already part of Azure Cloud Group. Okay, so the group went from around 20K to 60, almost close to 60K. And then when I was, because this almost most of this happened when I was regularly taking live sessions, and then due to lockdowns and other challenges at home, and even some health issues for me, I had to take a step back. But now I am trying to come back. Okay, so whenever I am available. Okay, so that said, let us, if you do not have more questions, let us wind up, and then let us maybe because anything related to port codes, portal access, or fees, or groups, and all those things you can ask in that group, and one of the admins will help you. Any technical things you have doubt, you can always connect with me. Okay, so there's a question. So tomorrow onwards, so we have a session on Azure, right? Yeah, so we have session. So there will be a different dedicated WhatsApp group also for it. Okay, so you can, based on interest, you can enroll accordingly. You can work out with the admins, and because please note that all the admins are also job seekers like you, because I told you this initiative I started to help people from our group and other groups who are looking for jobs. Okay, so if they make any mistake, do not get into any fight. You can always, as a backup, you can always come to me and say that, okay, this is not according to my expectation. Okay, can you make it right? I will do my best to make it right, because they are also like you. Okay, because sometimes I told you, right, sometimes learning for free is not enough for many people. Okay, they have to have some kind of income to survive. Okay, that is why we have all these initiatives like put under Trainso, because they can take all the operational headaches. And even because if you have to have students from outside India, we need to have export import license and all those things. Many things are there, and all those things are taken care by Trainso. Okay, they have license, they have everything. So consider me as a technical person, a technical expert or mentor. And if things are not working out, you can always get back to me and ask me to make things right. Is it okay? Okay, so I hope I answered all the questions, and I shared most important.
Yeah. For enrollment, do we need to get in touch with in the WhatsApp group or someone else?
Yeah. So and WhatsApp group, I'll just mention the names. It will be Sharon and Mridula. Okay, and they will help you with the enrollment process and all. Any doubts, you can always connect with me. I'll be always your backup. Because if I directly, if I become the first level, then I will not be able to many of the things, because I want to focus. Because if I want to teach you, so definitely nobody will be working on everything on Azure, right? Nobody, all the things that are covered in certification, nobody will be working on all those things. Okay, so even I work on a larger portion of it, but there are still areas which I continuously learn, I continuously do research. Okay, so I need to focus on the technology. But again, if there is an issue, I'll definitely help. But otherwise, my focus will be on technology. And so if I focus on technology, then only I can train you also better. Okay, so yeah, so you can contact them, and then I'll be backup. Sharon and Mridula will help you out, and you can help me out, and you can reach to me if you have any questions or doubts. Again, this timing is odd, because this time we have again people from countries including Canada, US, and Australia. So this is one time that is possible for all of them. And we may have soon in other time zones also, which we'll share soon. Okay, if time. And then if you start this batch and then if you feel like, okay, this timing is not working for you, you can move to any other batch when that is available without any additional process or expenses or anything. We'll wind up unless you have any more questions. I hope you learned at least one new thing, even if you are not joining the course also. I hope you have learned at least one new thing about this program. And again, all questions related to internship and all those things, I have tried answering other places. If you have any questions, share it in the group, not for enrolling, for any questions, and I will help you out the best ways I can. Okay, thank you all. See you all soon. Until then, bye-bye.